How many times did I not do this path over? But I'm going to just relay it again because of the guava tree. We struggle to walk. The branches become very heavy and low if it's bearing fruit. And I also don't want to keep on cutting the salt bush back. So that is the plan. And I'm going to try not to touch the entry point. We'll see. The joy of gardening in our senior years. As we enter retirement and the later chapters of our lives, many of us begin to look for activities that are both fulfilling and gentle on our bodies. Gardening is one of the most rewarding and beneficial pastimes you can embrace in your senior years. It's far more than planting seeds in the ground. It's an invitation to step outside, move your body, breathe in the fresh air, and reconnect with nature. Gardening is a wonderful form of exercise. It may not feel like a workout, but bending, stretching, lifting, planting, and weeding all keep the body moving. These movements help maintain flexibility, strengthen muscles, and encourage better balance. Something very important as we grow older. Unlike going to the gym, gardening never feels like a chore. It's gentle, purposeful exercise wrapped in joy. But the benefits don't stop with the physical. When you step into your garden, you step into a world of fresh air and natural light. Breathing deeply in the garden, surrounded by plants and trees, reduces stress and calms the mind. Science tells us that nature has a profound impact on our mental health, lowering anxiety, lifting mood, and even sharpening memory. And of course, being outside in the sunshine gives you that all important boost of vitamin D, which helps strengthen bones and supports overall health. Beyond the physical and mental health benefits, gardening brings beauty into your life. When you tend to your garden, you are creating an environment that nourishes the soul. A colorful flower bed, a neatly kept vegetable patch, or even a collection of potted plants on a balcony transforms your living space into something uplifting and inspiring. A beautiful garden is not just something to look at, it's something to live in. Imagine making a cup of tea, stepping outside and sitting among the flowers and greenery you've cared for. The bird song, the fragrance of the blossoms, all becomes part of your daily life. And those peaceful moments of simply sitting in your garden are just as beneficial as the gardening itself. Now, what kind of garden might you want to create? There are so many options. You may be drawn to a flower garden filled with bursts of color that change with the seasons. Perhaps you prefer the practical rewards of a vegetable and fruit garden, where the joy of planting is followed by the joy of harvesting. And of course, you don't have to choose, you can have both, mixing flowers and produce together in harmony. If space is limited, container gardening is a perfect option. Pots and containers can be filled with herbs, small vegetables, or flowers. They can be arranged on a patio, a balcony, or even along windowsills. Container gardening requires little space but brings the same joy and sense of accomplishment. Throw away. Mine's still full. And we go on with the ball. If you do grow fruits and vegetables, a whole world of possibility opens up. Harvesting your own food is deeply satisfying, but it also keeps you active and engaged. With your produce, you can try canning, bottling, or preserving fruits and vegetables, creating jars of jam, pickles, or sauces that you can enjoy throughout the year. Baking pies with your own fruit is another simple pleasure, filling your kitchen with a sense of homegrown goodness. And if you find you have more than you can use, you might consider selling some of your produce at a local farmer's market. Not only does this provide a little extra income to supplement your pension, but it also connects you to your community and gives you the joy of sharing your harvest with others. I would get back to me and my garden in a little bit, but for now I would like to transport you to Illinois in the United States, where a very good friend of mine, Joe Cooper, resides. He mainly gardens with fruit and vegetables and have perfected the art of canning, bottling, and making pies. The epitome of somebody that lives off the fruit of his hard labor, making full use of the yield of the land. So I'm going to hand the mic over, and here is Joe.
Hi, my name is Joe Cooper. I live in the United States in the state of Illinois in a little town called Stewartson, a town of about 750 people. I'm 69 years old. I live by myself. And the picture you see here is after I had finished lawn sweeping. This is part of my yard. And in the background, you can see my neighbor's house. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill house for our town. Many houses look this way. We generally have larger lots. That's not always the case. Some lots are smaller, some lots are larger, but in this small town, we generally have larger yards because there is space and space is abundant. And you see a fence with plants growing up it. Those are peas. These peas are called telephone pole peas. They get taller than normal peas, which stand about a foot or two. These get about 5 or 6 foot tall. And they produce a lot of peas, and I sure enjoyed the peas this year. I like to also raise flowers for the hummingbirds and the butterflies and the bees and the cardinals and goldfinches. It's very calming to go out and sit by the edge of the garden when it's in bloom and have birds and butterflies flying and feeding off of the flowers, off of the nectar. Oftentimes I take my Bible out and do my daily devotions out there. And I take Bentley, my teacup poodle, out there with me, and we have a pretty good peaceful time. This is in June. Things are starting to do well. They're getting taller. The corn you see on the right. To the left of that is some kale and Brussels sprouts. You can also see a rabbit next to the kale. It's eating the kale. A few years ago, someone down the street decided to have rabbits, so they got domestic rabbits and turned them loose on purpose, and they have been a real pest in my garden. They eat things and they strip things off. So this was another rabbit that I had to deal with. And you can see that the corn, once it's almost ready to pick, I have a problem with coons. You can see how these ears of this corn is stripped. So I have to deal with those too. I try to catch them and take them away. So coons are a problem as well. On the left, you can see an ear of corn. Now there's something different about this ear of corn. You can see it's very filled out. And the reason for that is when it's wet, corn can develop a fungus under the shucks. I can't remember what that fungus is called. I can't pronounce it anyway. I've seen this all of my life off and on in my gardening years. And it was only recently, perhaps about 3 years ago, I discovered that you could eat that fungus. You can cut it off the cob and caramelize it, and it's actually pretty good. And also one time I made cream of mushroom soup using that fungus. It's kind of like mushrooms is what it is, and it looks like mushrooms. But it's pretty good, and now I try to eat as much of it as I can. And I also raise popcorn. To the right, you see the popcorn sheller, and I raise 65-foot rows of colored popcorn. What I like to do is plant various shades of popcorn, and that way I get different colors in the jar, and it looks really pretty as I store it away. You can see the different colors there. I started out with plain yellow, and then I moved into red, and now, because of the crossing of the pollen, whenever I shuck the corn, ears come out in different colors. It's very beautiful. One thing I like to do is make sauerkraut, and on the left you can see some sauerkraut in a crock. You shred the cabbage and add salt and leave it in the crock in a dark, cool place for at least 3 weeks, and the cabbage will ferment, and sauerkraut is very delicious. I like to eat it the way it is in a bowl, or I like to apply it on a sandwich. And I also do a lot of juicing of tomatoes. You can see tomatoes on the right. I do a lot of juicing, and sometimes I will just can the juice as is, or I will make spaghetti sauce or ketchup or pizza sauce or tomato sauce out of the juice. And that's a juicer there. Takes quite a bit of elbow grease to make the juice. You cut the tomatoes up after you pick them, you wash them, and then you cut them up and you send them through the juicer, and it extracts the juice from the tomatoes. To make the juice, you just add salt and garlic, pepper if you want peppers like jalapeno peppers or cayenne peppers, or maybe just make it without peppers. And then you can it. On the left is a big pan of tomato juice. I don't remember what I was going to do with it, but that's the tomato juice cooking down. And if I were to make spaghetti sauce or ketchup or whatever, I would just add in the spices and the seasonings into that big pan and cook it down. To make spaghetti sauce, ketchup, tomato sauce, barbecue sauce, and whatever, it takes all day to cook that juice down, literally all day, because you have to thicken it up. But if you're making juice out of it, you only have to bring the juice to a boil for about 20 minutes and then place the juice in sterilized jars. On the right, you see that I did make juice out of that. I have several jars of juice ready to go. And in the front, you see some sauerkraut. That will be raw sauerkraut. It is not canned. It is just taken straight from the crock and put into sterilized jars, and I put it in the fridge. So that is raw sauerkraut. It's very good. A lot of good probiotics in it and good for the gut. Very healthy. I happen to have an addiction, and that is pies. I love to make pies. Just about all my pies are made from things that I raise around here or that I go to an orchard to get the product, or I go out to the blueberry farm out just outside of town and pick the blueberries, and they also have strawberries. But I just love pies, and that is a peach pie. And you can see that in the pan is where I have the peaches cut up, and I added the sugar, the nutmeg, the cinnamon, and a thickener, cornstarch, got it all mixed up, and then I used it fresh and froze the rest. I like to grow new beans every once in a while. So I grew 2 new beans this year. On the left is butter peas, and they yielded prolifically. On the right is a bean called Jacob's Cattle. It's called Jacob's Cattle because it's named after an episode in the Bible where Jacob was going to leave his father-in-law, I think it was Laban, and Jacob made a deal with his father-in-law that he would take all the cattle and sheep that were spotted. And so these beans are red with specks on them, white specks. But they were very good, and so are the butter peas to the left. Now you can save dried beans and grow them next year, and you don't even have to go buy beans again. You just save the seeds from year to year. I love growing mustard greens. I love growing any kind of greens actually, but these are mustard greens. Now mustard greens, if you plant them in the spring, here they get very hot in the summer because of the temperature. So I like to grow mustard greens in the fall. So I will sow them in the garden about the last week of July, and because they are planted in the late summer and grow in the fall, the leaves actually get a lot bigger and they're not hot at all. But if you grow them in the spring, the leaves don't get that big, and man, they pack a punch. If you eat them raw, they will knock you out almost. Sends a bang to the head. So I prefer to grow mustard greens in the fall. You strip them off the stem, and then you cut them up with a knife, and then you cook them down and freeze them. And of course, you can eat them fresh. You can also use them in salads and on sandwiches. Last year, the pepper harvest was very, very good. And that is Bentley by the wagon. Bentley's my little helper. Bentley's my little companion. We're together 24/7. Those peppers in the wagon are what I picked just before the frost last year. And I had already had enough peppers. You can see a 5-gallon bucket of peppers there on the right, already cut up and ready to send through the food processor to slice them up. But I had more peppers than that actually. This is just one bucket. But I had many buckets, and I still have some. In fact, I have quite a bit left over from last year, which are in the freezer waiting for me to consume. But the peppers, you can see the different colors there. I love growing different colors, and you can see yellow, you can see red. There are also green and orange and purple. And then there are jalapeno peppers in there too. So you have bell peppers, jalapeno peppers, and I think that's about it. But sometimes I will grow Thai peppers. But I grew Thai peppers several years ago, and I ended up with a ton of them. And I have some left. I have lots of them left, and I gave a lot of them away, the Thai peppers, and I sold some in my store that I had. I had a health food store in a nearby town, and I could take produce in to the store and sell it. Now these peppers in the wagon, since I had more peppers than I needed that year, I put them all in a wagon. I took them downtown to the post office and left the wagon sit there, and they were gone in a day. So I do enjoy giving things away. I give things to the neighbors and people who come by, and sometimes I'll even take them door to door and give them away. That's the life of a gardener. That's what we're here for. I had a very good carrot year here about 2 years ago. It was a very good carrot year. And I was able to can 12 quarts, I guess 12 quarts it looks like, of carrots. But then I had some disfigured carrots, and that's what happens. Sometimes when you raise carrots, they come out with 3 legs, or they come out deformed or looking odd. So in the bowl are carrots that looked odd, and what I like to do with them is wash them down real good. And you see a juicer, the white machine behind that bowl, that's a juicer. And I juiced those carrots and added some celery to the juice mix, and that was delicious. It was very, very good. I ended up with several quarts of that. Homemade carrot juice is absolutely delicious. Under the table, you will see one of my canners. that silver pan there with the gauge on the top, that's one of my canners. I have 2 canners. Having 2 canners is a blessing because you get the work done a lot faster. It takes about 45 minutes to put the jars in there, bring it up to a heat, bring it up to the level of pressure that needs to sustain the canning process, and you will can that at a sustained level for about 10 minutes, 5 pounds at 10 minutes, and then you let the pressure drop, and then you take the lid off and take the jars out. The process of canning takes 45 minutes a canner, and you can get about 7 quarts in each canner. Okay, here you go. I have a skillet of corn fungus, which I can't remember the name of it, but I have a skillet with that in it and some onions and some squash and the square things are butter pats. So I'm going to caramelize all that, and there's corn in there too, corn right off the cob, and that was actually very delicious. Salt and pepper, Italian seasoning. These are the things you eat. These are the things you do when you have a garden. And on the right is a skillet with squash or pumpkin blossoms. It looks like squash blossoms. You can't tell the difference between squash blossoms and pumpkin blossoms, but it's one or the other. It's probably squash blossoms. Squash blossoms are very good to fry, and I make sandwiches out of those. I put them on bread and butter, and that is delicious. And yep, I love pies. On the top right are raspberries. I go out into our woods and pick raspberries, and I didn't have any luck this year. It was an off year for raspberries, but this would have been from 2024, I believe. And on the bottom right, I have a friend who has mulberry trees, and I will go out and lay down a cover on the ground and shake mulberry tree limbs, and the mulberries will fall down on the cover, on the sheet or whatever I have, and I will pick the mulberries up and freeze them for pies or make fresh pie. The green little stems, you can see the green stems on the mulberries, and you just leave the stems on. They're completely edible. Raspberry pie and mulberry pie are very delicious, but then all pies are delicious. There is a strawberry farm 6 miles out of town. A student needed a project for his agriculture class, so he started up a strawberry patch. That was many years ago, probably 20 years ago maybe. And the farm is still in progress, it's still in operation, and people go out and pick strawberries. I go out there about every day for 2 or 3 weeks and pick strawberries. I pick about 8 quarts a day and come home and process them. What I did with this batch was to make strawberry jam, as you see in the cartons. It's very good. And I oftentimes just mix them with sugar and just freeze them like that with sugar. That way I can make strawberry shortcake. A lot of times I will take extra pie crust and bake it and use that pie crust with the strawberries. You can see the peas growing on the panel fence, and I have about a gallon bucket picked. And on the right, those are green beans. I grow a lot of green beans and can them. I have canned green beans from 2 or 3 years past, but I do a lot of canning and freezing here. Another corn I grow is called Chinese baby corn. It is a mini corn, M-I-N-I, mini corn. So I grow sweet corn, this Chinese baby corn, and I grow popcorn. And it's important not to grow them too close together or they will cross. And you don't want them to cross. So you can see in the measuring cup how tiny the ears are. You can eat those raw, or you can put them in stir fry, which I do quite a bit, vegetable stir fry or refried rice. And the silk I save and make corn silk tea with. That's very good. Also notice in that picture, you will see white blossoms on the ground. That's white clover. And I do pick white clover. I try to every year to make a batch or 2 of jelly. White clover jelly tastes about like honey. Very good. And you can see on the right the ears as they come off the stalk of corn. The ears are very little. That was my picking for one day. I grow 2 short rows, probably 8 foot long, two 8 foot long rows, so that would be 16 foot. And you have to get out there just about every single day to pick the corn because they grow fast and they multiply fast. They put a lot of ears on the stalks on this Chinese baby corn. Well, there's just a typical light harvest on the left side. Peppers and tomatoes and whatever else. You just go out and you take a bucket out there and start picking. And on the right are cherry tomatoes in that pan. And on the left are lima beans. And then you can also see in the pans shredded peppers. Earlier you saw the peppers cut in half. These are the peppers after I've taken them out of the bucket and sent them through the food processor and have shredded them. Then I will put them in plastic bags and freeze them and have them in stir-fry, refried rice. I usually get some pretty good sweet potatoes here, and last year was no exception. Some of the sweet potatoes turned out rather huge. It's that way every year. Some of them turn out rather huge. Almost too huge for an individual. I give a lot of sweet potatoes away. I'm not the biggest sweet potato fan. I used to grow a lot of sweet potatoes, and I would grow two 85-foot rows. And one year I had bushel after bushel of sweet potatoes, and I got kind of tired of them. So I grow shorter rows now, about 16-foot rows, perhaps two 16-foot rows, and I still have a lot of sweet potatoes, and I give a lot of them away. One problem I have with sweet potatoes here are the voles. That's voles. It's a rodent that resides underground, and they will eat the sweet potatoes before you harvest them. And on the right, I grow different herbs in containers. It's the best way I found here to grow herbs is to grow them in containers. So what you see in this pan are sprigs of thyme that I have just harvested. I'm going to let those dry, and then I will scrape the leaves off the stems and use thyme in much of my cooking. Recently I made rhubarb pie. On the range is a rhubarb pie, and in the middle of that range is crust, extra crust that I have baked, and I will eat that with strawberries. And on the right of that range is extra rhubarb I had, and I made a quick fruit cobbler out of the extra rhubarb that I had. I had too much rhubarb for one pie, so I ended up making a quick fruit rhubarb cobbler. And in the other picture, I always call these junk pies because sometimes if I have extra fruit, I will just roll up the crust any old way, put it in a pan, dump my extra pie filling on that crust, and just kind of roll it up somehow the best I can, pop her in the oven, and just eat it as is. Doesn't look attractive, but it tastes really good. But because I don't care how it looks or anything, I just call it a junk pie with the leftovers. Take the leftovers, bake it, and call it a junk pie.
Thank you, Joe, for showing us what a produce garden can yield and what all a person can do with the harvest. Gardening can also be personal and unique. For example, in my own garden, I find myself surrounded by fragrance. By design or perhaps by happy accident, I have collected many plants that release the most wonderful perfumes, especially at this time of year as spring awakens the earth. The blossoms don't all arrive at once. One flower begins to fade just as another comes into bloom. The result is a continuous, ever-changing symphony of scents. Early mornings and late afternoons are especially magical as the air fills with fragrance. Walking through the garden then is like walking through a cloud of nature's perfume, soothing, uplifting, and unforgettable. The yesterday, today, and tomorrow is flowering. Perfume, the most wonderful fragrance. And just to the right, we've got the jasmine flowering. It's starting to release its perfume. It's just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is glorious. It is glorious. Perfume, perfume. And accompanied by the sad song of spickles. The yellow moonflower is flowering. It's got a glorious perfume starting to release. So you can just imagine what this is starting to smell like in my garden from this time onwards in the afternoon. You want to be here, believe me. This hawthorn has a glorious perfume. The white one not so much, but this one fills the air. Oh. Just magnificent. This reminds me of a place we used to have in the city where I live, a garden for the blind. It was planted with an incredible variety of fragrant plants, designed so that visitors could experience the garden not through sight but through smell. Even though that garden is no longer as it once was, the memory stays with me, and I see echoes of it in my own space. How fragrance can shape our experience, awaken memories, and bring a deep sense of peace. And that is the beauty of gardening in our senior years. It touches every part of our lives. It gives us exercise for the body, calm for the mind, and beauty for the soul. It gives us purpose, something to care for, something to nurture. It connects us to the rhythms of nature, reminding us that life continues to bloom and change with the seasons. And it gives us moments of pure, simple joy, whether that is watching a flower open, picking a ripe tomato, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea among the plants we've tended with love. Now, they are not supposed to be the same length. Yeah. Yeah. If you can get that right, I can leave you. I get people to do it for me. They must think that in the same place.
So I just want to know you. Let's sit like
Yeah, but you're going to have to start from there.
start from there.
Yeah. Otherwise, if it doesn't fit, then you've wasted all your time. That one you start from the wall.
From the wall.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. And we're going to end it here. So that one must also end. Yeah.
The morning sun is rising, the soil is soft and kind. With Thomas by my side, I leave my cares behind. We turn the earth together, our hands and hearts at play. Gardening keeps us younger, chasing time away. In the garden we grow, where the blossoms always know. Fragrant winds are carrying the love the seasons show. With jasmine on the trellis Yesterday, today, and tomorrow brings colors to the night. We're relaying the pathway by the old guava tree. Each stone a little memory, a step in history. The hawthorn sways so gently, its perfume fills the breeze. The air becomes a blessing when I'm down upon my knees. In the garden we grow, where the blossoms always know. Fragrant winds are carrying the love the seasons show. With jasmine on the trellis and moonflowers shining white. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow brings colors to the night. It's healthy work, it's healing work, it makes the spirit sing. A garden blooms inside of us with every living thing. And when the day is ending, I sit and simply see the beauty all around me, the gift it gives to me. With Thomas and the laughter, the spade and watering can, this garden is my story, the heart of who I am. In the garden we grow, where the blossoms always know. Fragrant winds are carrying the love the seasons show. With jasmine on the trellis and moonflowers shining white. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow brings colors to the night. Yes, the joy of sitting quietly while the evening breezes flow. In the garden, that's where my soul will grow.
So, if you are entering retirement or already in your senior years, consider embracing gardening. No matter how big or small your space, there is a way to create your own little sanctuary. Let it become your exercise, your therapy, your art, and your gift to yourself. In the garden, you don't just grow plants, you grow health, happiness, and peace of mind.